Welcome to this very special episode of the AEC Engineering and Technology Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping engineering professionals find technology that fits their needs. This podcast marks the first episode in our 10-episode series called Unveiling Tech Horizons. Throughout this series, we will revolutionize AEC consulting by delving into cutting-edge technologies such as AI, BIM, digital twinning, PM resourcing tools, and more. In this first episode, I'll be speaking with Mehdi, an author, speaker, and the CEO of YegaTech, about the different types of AI, how AI is used in engineering, and the challenges and opportunities it brings. We'll also discuss Mehdi's book, Augment, and Mehdi will also share his advice for aspiring engineers who are interested in pursuing a career in AI. With that, let's jump into today's very special episode. Mehdi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you on, and thank you for taking the time to come on. And I know we've got a lot to talk about, so why don't we just jump right into it. So Mehdi, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your background in AEC and AI and kind of how the two have come together for you in your career?
Absolutely. So I started as a civil engineer and got a specialization in structural engineer. I started working as a structural engineer, designing lots of different types of buildings. And later, I went to construction. So I started building what I used to design. And I learned a lot from the field. And I decided to do higher education, get a master's in construction management, and later did my Ph.D. at Georgia Tech in design computing, went to the architectural school. And this was a time that I got introduced to the world of artificial intelligence. I was doing a master's in computer science, and I was fascinated by how AI is working and the potential that it has to our industry. Fast forward, I started working for Autodesk on their AI initiatives, and I was part of a team that created lots of different solutions in manufacturing, architecture, engineering, and construction. As I was doing this for the company, I started realizing that why some of our AI projects are successful and why some of them are not. And that became a genesis of my book, Augmented. I create a framework for the successful implementation of AI solution that I shared in the book. And later I decided to start my own company, YegaTech, helping architecture, engineering, and construction companies to leverage their data and AI and build a better future for everyone.
Yeah, and I'm looking in Mehdi in the background, right? And you can see your book, right? And intentionally so, I'm sure, right? The A and I and both words are capitalized, right? And we'll get into the book here in a moment. But could you also elaborate on the role your company YegaTech plays in helping AEC companies with their operational strategy, specifically using AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we work with the companies in the industry, we typically see that there are lots of companies that do AI experimentation. They try to use AI, but when we ask them about how is this going to give you a market differentiation, the answer to that problem most of the time is we don't exactly know. So we help the companies, we look into their business strategy, we look into some of the inefficiencies that we have today, and we bring some AI opportunities forward and work with the executives of these companies to create AI strategy that accelerates their business strategy. And this is how we help this company in the industry to move forward faster.
Which is got to be really welcome, right? Because as you've seen, and I mean, you've been in the game for a while, right? But AI has recently exploded in the public's eye, right? Models like ChatGPT coming into the public's eye, becoming very accessible to your, essentially, right, just your everyday user, have really sparked an interest in this. And it's also really interesting, though, and I'm wondering if you've seen the same, where technologies that have emerged, right? It's almost like it's hitting all levels of companies, right? Down from the individual contributor all the way up to the CEO, and everybody seems to be very interested in what's possible.
Absolutely. And if you look at, if you're in the AI field for long enough, you kind of see the like three eras of AI, if you will. The first era is from 1950s to like 2010, and that was the era of small models. That was the era that we had very shallow, small model, very fragile, and that was the extent of it. Later on, when we had better algorithms, we had a lot of computing powers and a ton of data, came the era of deep models. And that was like 2010, 2012 to 2020. And this is when the models got deeper, stronger, and we could, leverage those to do things at a really large scale. And since 2020, that became the era of foundational model. And these are the models that are very versatile. You could talk to ChatGPT about law, about medicine, and about, anything else. And these are the models that could be leveraged as a foundation to do a lot of different things. And this is just the beginning. And that's why, you see that the AI is touching all these different levels in the organization, because now it's becoming a lot easier as the capabilities of these AI systems have been growing. The cost of experimentation with these has been reducing at the same time. And it's a lot easier to experiment with AI systems today.
And I'm sure as you've seen the industry grow and change, right? Like, and I'm assuming here, and I'd be, curious to get your thoughts, right? Like your book Augment It, right, was probably born out of some desire to educate the larger industry, particularly AEC, about like what is AI and how can it be used. But like in your own words, like why did you write Augment It, and how has that been working out?
Absolutely. So I wrote this book because, if you look at the AI in practice, 85% of the AI projects fail. And mainly because like three big reasons. One is, data and lack of having good data. Another one is around planning and implementation for the AI projects. A lot of time companies say, okay, we have this data, give it to a data scientist and see what it can do with it. But the reality is that you really need to plan and design the AI system and then start building it. We don't build the buildings without the design, and same goes to creating an AI system. And the last one is the skill set and knowledge. We have a lot of people outside of the industry specialize in AI, and we have a lot of people inside the industry that may not know much about AI, but they're specialized in architecture, engineering, construction. The overlap between these two groups is very narrow. And what I really wanted to do with the book is that to create a bigger overlap between these two groups, to help the executives. I wrote this book for CEOs, leaders, and executives in the AC community to really learn more about AI. And when I was interviewing for the book, I asked I did more than 50 interviews, and I asked them, what do you want me to put in the book that that is really helpful to you? And often the answer was, tell me about what AI is and what it is not, what it can do, but more importantly, what are the limitations, what it cannot do, and what is the line between these two, between what it can and what it can. So the first part of the book talks about all of these. And the second part is about how you can bring that to your company. What are the steps that you need to take? And the last part of it is some of the use cases, some of the projects that we've done in the past, and really trying to tie everything together.
Excellent. And based on right the statistic you threw out, right, 85% of these AI projects are just for whatever reason, you've mentioned a couple, not successful in the end. But let's start simple for our audience because we're going to build up to like your experience, use cases, etc. But for those who aren't familiar, what exactly is artificial intelligence? Right, AI is the acronym, specifically in the context of engineering.
Absolutely. So AI is a branch of computer science where scientists try to create computer systems that can mimic human capabilities. And those human capabilities are how we read, how we write, how we hear, how we see. And in the book, I use this metaphor of AI is like a tree. The roots of the tree are in science, like mathematics, biology, uh, you know, other branch of computer science, and the branches of the tree are different fields or subfields of AI, such as computer vision to mimic how we see, natural language processing to mimic our language. So we talk about ChatGPT and LLMs. Machine learning is another branch of the AI tree, and robotics, optimization, and knowledge representation and reasoning, just to name a few. So in the context of engineering, if you think about it, anywhere that any of us are working with images, working with text, working with um, you know other data formats, signals, there is a potential to apply these AI methods into the work that we do.
Excellent. And right, as we were discussing earlier, right, of my personal interest, right, when we talk about infrastructure, right, computer vision is a huge part of that, to essentially let a computer see just like we do as a human, right, computer vision. But getting into, I mean, any subset of engineering, right, there's a lot of possibility, which is why I'd like to ask, so like, how can AI be used in engineering, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities that come along with that?
Yes. So when I was a structural engineer, just give you an example. I used to wait a lot of time. So I was designing the base model. I was putting all the loadings and everything. And I push a button just for FEA to run the analysis and wait for 5 minutes, go grab a tea or coffee, or talk to a neighbor, and come back to get the results. So that process of running a FEA, waiting for a long time. So what happens in the backend is that there are some inputs. The FEA is a function. It will run this based on the matrix calculation and everything, and it comes up with the output. So in using machine learning as an example, if you have enough inputs and if you have enough outputs, you can create a function approximation that basically approximates what's happening in between. And this is one example. And what's the benefit of this is that you can use this to expedite the process of designing things. So instead of 5 minutes, once you have a machine learning model trained, you can do this in 3 seconds or 3 milliseconds. And what it enables us to do is that instead of running one simulation, maybe you can use another branch of the AI tree, like optimization, to run hundreds and maybe thousands of different simulations and scenarios for different geometries, for different conditions and things of that nature. So it really enables us to do a lot more in a very shorter period of time. Now, for the listeners, that was the example I gave you, was my pain point in a day. So think about what are the things that you do every day, and you're like, oh, why are we waiting so much? Why are we waiting for this for so long? Or what are we doing this? This is like 21st century. Why are we doing this way? So think about inefficiencies and think about the things that you do and bothers you, and think about those branches of the AI tree and think how it could potentially help you to do things faster, better, and so that you can do more with less.
And I'll draw on a related example from my experience in infrastructure repair and restoration, right? So often engineers are walking miles of bridges, or hundreds of thousands of square feet of parking garages, right? Identifying these conditions and then analyzing each individually. Well, if you're able to team an engineer up with a computer vision based piece of software, there's the opportunity to start using artificial intelligence to more quickly sift through conditions, perhaps alert engineers to ones that are higher priority based on training data, et cetera, right? So now, just like you said, Mehdi, right, you're reducing this runtime of an FEA model from 5 minutes down to milliseconds with machine learning. You can start to, really hone in on certain conditions and perhaps um, focus your efforts as an engineer on things that are more important in the inspection space, right? But like Mehdi said, just think about pain points that you as a practicing engineer have, and then try to determine if there's maybe a solution out there. And we're always available to talk about these things if anyone's interested in reaching out. But let's talk about more, I guess, like enterprise wide or company wide, right? So like if an AEC firm says, hey, I know there's something that AI can do, but I don't know where to go or what exactly I should be doing. Like, what's the first thing you're telling, say, like a potential client regarding like their AI strategy?
Absolutely. So the first step is, and these are all the things that I explain in the book. The first step is really looking into, so there are two ways that we can capture those opportunities. One way is looking at inefficiencies that exist in the organization today. And you can run a survey, you can talk to people, and often people have a lot of ideas on like where the inefficiencies are. Another category is looking into the business strategy. Where do you want to take your company 3 years from now? And what are the opportunities right there in the business strategy that AI can help to accelerate? And bringing these two together to find what's the right AI opportunity for a company. So that's often a starting point, starting from the business opportunity, starting from inefficiencies in the market, inefficiencies in the company. And once we have that, then you can analyze all the data and look into, okay, maybe these are 1 or 2 or 3 starting points that if we can solve, can give the company a huge advantage.
And if we ask kind of a similar question, but more geared towards like the C-suite executives, et cetera, and setting like a strategy for market differentiation, would your advice change, based on just like a company wide versus like implementation by, say, like a CEO?
Yeah, so I guess my answer will be the same. Like looking at it through the lens of market differentiation. There are, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a CEO of an engineering company, and you want to figure out how AI could help you, your company, based on the data that you have, to make a huge differentiation in the market. And you look into different areas that you're doing, and you realize that, okay, maybe there is an opportunity in making better no-go decision in the projects that you want to undertake. And you have done this 100 times before, you have all the data that's relevant, and perhaps, for instance, you can use some of those data to, based on the past projects and the amount of profit and everything that you made, you can use some of those to identify, given this project with these requirements and conditions, how much is the chance of, being profitable in this project? Just as an example. And so this could be a tool that could be used to help your company decide based on data, not gut feeling, on whether they want to undertake something or not. And definitely this is a tool that you can use as human to make decision. The tool won't, basically give you a recommendation, and you're the one that is making the final decision.
Which is excellent, right? Because you could, as pull an example from my experience, right? If you said, hey, hey, we're going to go inspect this asset and we're trying to determine how much to charge, right? Which is one of the $1 million questions out there. Instead of, a potential hours calculation, times a billable rate, like you could just go back into your thousands of projects, let's say, and I'm sure you'd have to establish some parameters and some data for the AI to take in. But ultimately, right, it should be able to tell you, hey, based on past experience, you should be charging X, or some other piece of data to help you as a decision maker come to a final decision.
Absolutely. And these are some of the unique ways that you and your company can make decision that could differentiate you from the competitors.
And Mehdi, so besides your book, right, which again I'm looking at, to your right, my left, in the background of your screen, is there any other resources that you would recommend to our listeners to help them better understand how AI could be used in engineering?
Absolutely. So beside the book, on our website, we also have a AI workbook that people just can go and download in the resources section. And this AI workbook basically explain some of the workshops that we run, how to run it, what are the tools and equipments you need. So basically trying to help you to get started, and trying to help you to do some of the activities that I explain in the book on your own. So I highly recommend downloading the workbook. It's free, no charge. And also we have a course in our website. So it's a 2-hour AI course specifically designed for architecture, engineering, and construction sector about AI. And and that's also based on the book. So if you don't have time to read the book, you can take the course. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn and ask any questions, and I'll be happy to direct you based on your specific needs into and answer your questions.
And it sounds like I've got two pieces of content to add to my list, right? The book and the background here, and as Mehdi said, the course, and then of course the free sounds more like a starter guide for you guys, right? As a primer to get people up to speed.
Yes.
And which is fantastic. So all of that information to the listeners, you guys can find in the show notes on our website, which you'll hear a little bit more about in the outro to the episode. But Mehdi, I mean, it's been great having you on here. But as we conclude our conversation, what other advice would you give to engineers that are aspiring to maybe either couple with their current career or transition into something more of a path involving AI?
My advice would be just to get started. If you want to learn more about AI, read more, get started, and start thinking about how it could be applied to your specific needs and specific use cases. When I started my career, it was a time, it was around early 2000s. And this was a time that everybody was talking about, oh, everything will be digital, and programming was the thing. At that time was computer science was a really big thing. And today it's just everywhere. And what we see is, AI is everywhere, that we use, typical person often interact with AI more than 20 times a day, but not so much in our industry compared to other industries. And this requires all of us to learn more about AI, to act on it, to think about it, and to start building skills that can help us grow the industry the way that we want, and bring the right people to the industry so that they can build the right solution. So to sum it up, start learning, start thinking, and start learning the skills that can help you in your career and the industry, and put all of us in the right direction.
And Mehdi, as you alluded to earlier, right, that intersection between, technical specialists, right, architects, engineers, contractors, and those who know about AI, right, that overlap right now is very tiny. So if you're interested, to the audience, in a career taking advantage of not only just artificial intelligence, right, programming, other computer science related topics, because that intersection's so small, it's a blessing and a curse, because there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there to provide a lot of value to your firm, or whether it be you as an independent consultant, et cetera. So I mean, the possibilities are almost endless. But again, Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us today. If our listeners want to connect with you kind of post show, what's the best way to reach you?
just shoot me an email, Mehdi, Mehdi at YegaTech, YegaTech.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot, and yeah, just get in touch, and I'll be happy to invite you to our webinars, or some of the free share outs that we have, and let's get connected, let's work together, and let's push this industry forward.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure, Mehdi, and until next time, again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aectechpodcast.com. There, you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering and technology endeavors. Thank you.